What's good, everybody? It's your boy O'Shea Duke Jackson, back at it again here on the YouTube channel. Man, got a really great guest. I want to give you guys a round of applause for being here. But I'm gonna let him explain himself. The brother we have today. Go ahead, family. Tell them who you are. What's the name of your channel?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dr. Mike TV. That is actually the channel name. Little lone tidbit, my big bro, O'Shea Duke Jackson, was the first ever person to call me Dr. Mike. And when we did our first interview together, that's how I ended up changing my name to Dr. Mike TV. The original name, if you go back a long time ago, I'll let you find it. But I am a young brother who moved to the Philippines when he was about 18 years of age. I studied abroad, spent a lot of time overseas because I was a military kid. Kind of came into my own while living overseas in the Philippines for 10 years. When I came back home, feeling a little bit nostalgic, started my own YouTube channel roughly about 2017. Since then, we've been growing strong and just been basing a lot of my content around traveling, more specifically to the Philippines, dealing with the young ladies out there in the Philippines and, trying to make some content and knowledge and, provide a little bit of education about my experiences and what a lot of brothers looking to travel to the Philippines could likely experience it if they go there themselves.
All right, and give him a round of applause, guys, coming on. Now, I just want to, kind of talk about this because a lot of black men, I know there's the big three. You got Brazil, you got Colombia, and then you got the DR. And then kind of on the outskirts, like, there's some other countries, Costa Rica. And then there's the Philippines. I know a lot of Americans have been going to the Philippines, but kind of before we get into it, like how did you start? I know you was a military brat, but what kept you going back to the Philippines instead of some of these other places that some of these African American men are going?
You know what? That's a $1 million question, man. The Philippines provided an experience for me that I wouldn't trade in for the world. I mean, I find it easy to deal with the women out there. English being it's kind of like a second language out there. So it's not as if you really are required to learn the language to have a conversation with them. I kind of feel like in places like Brazil and maybe down in the DR and places like that, Spanish, and Portuguese are languages you kind of feel like you have to learn, or you got to have like that translation app to kind of work for you. But in the Philippines, because they really do speak English, granted it's a little bit broken, for the most part, it's really easy to communicate with the people out there. Not to mention it's a nice place. I will admit, third world country, but they got a lot of nice locations to check out. Beautiful places to see. And I can't cap, man. The women, bar none. It may not be as thick as the ones out there in the DR and Brazil. I'll keep it real, but
okay.
I will say that. Don't get me wrong. You can find some thick ones, but you just won't find them like you will find out there in the Latin American countries. I'll say that. But the women, they provide a different perspective on life, and I think that a lot of brothers, you're so used to dealing with a certain type of women from time to time, and it just provides a different way of thinking and a different way of understanding. Okay, so not all women are particularly like one particular style because you've been dating a woman that fits a particular bill. And when you get to see, another side of dating or dealing with women from other countries, it kind of, makes it full circle. So now you have you have side A, side B, and you can say, okay, well, over here, I know that I deal with this, and this, and over there, and you start to see that, you don't necessarily have to just put up with and or deal with women because they come from one place. You can see a different side of life and understand that, women in different countries, they definitely, hold their men in high value. And you may not feel that way dealing with some. You may not feel that way with some. And out there, I do believe that you get that vibe. If you give it a chance, I promise you, you'll feel that.
Okay, let me just say this because I know that's one. I'm glad you touched on that because a lot of brothers, African American brothers in the tribal community, they often say that dealing with women in another country, they feel like they have more opportunity to deal with women. But in America, they feel like, there's a lot of the entitlement, a lot of false expectations in men. They have to deal with that. So what's your experience, in your opinion, dating somebody, we can even make it specific, in the African-American community in America, and what their expectations are versus what you get dealing with a woman from the Philippines?
That's a funny question. Let me start off by saying this. I'd rather lose 50,000 pesos rather than lose $50,000. And when I say that, what I'm trying to say is when you're dealing with women abroad, because of how cheap it is to be in the country, again, everybody has expectations. Don't get it twisted, man. We are foreigners, more specifically, a lot of us being Black American, African American. They're going to believe that you have money, but the money that you're likely to spend overseas will probably pale in comparison to probably the money that you'll spend, within the United States dealing with women who have high expectations for, lavish dinner dates, maybe. I mean, going to a place that you might drop $200. I remember you did a community post on it. A brother spent a bill that was crazy. I can't remember the exact number, but I remember that. And I'm like, yo, that's not the type of things you'll experience in the Philippines, like at all. I mean, you can, but you would really have to push yourself to be put in such a position. So I kind of feel like the expectations, brother got to be 6 foot, 6 figure salary. You've heard that, right? But in the Philippines, height wise, man, the tallest Filipino dude, as far as competition is concerned, like 5'2", 5'3". So I'll tell you right now, I'm only 5'8", pushing 5'9" on a good day, but I'm tall over there. So height ain't really an issue, right? Height's not really an issue or anything like that. And you don't have to deal with, a lot of women telling you what you got to do for them, right?
Okay.
In the United States, you kind of feel that. They're always telling you, what are you going to bring to the table? That's a very valuable question that a lot of brothers hear. In the Philippines, it's kind of like you can look at them and say, okay, what are you going to bring to me? I already know what I'm bringing. I got finances. I'm taken care of. I'm good. So what are you going to provide for me? If you want to have access to my finances, if that's the way you choose to like live your life. So it's kind of like a reverse effect in the United States. I kind of feel like it's always, what are you going to do for me, or what do you bring to the table? There's always the expectation. In the Philippines, it's kind of like, with the options that you have as a brother traveling to the country, you don't have to worry about it, because now they're vying for your attention as opposed to you having to vie for theirs.
And you have a doctorate degree, so it's not like you're not no scrub or nothing. You have a doctorate degree.
I do.
And you still feel, even Tia Johnson was saying that, you have a PhD, very, very accomplished. You still be feeling like in America, like, okay, what do you bring? And they don't feel like they need to do anything for you. Let me talk about this, right? Because I know that in certain places, let's just say, for example, if you go to Colombia, and I was talking to brother Rob over at No Excuses ENT. We talked about going to South Africa. He said, when you're in Colombia, he said it before the show, you don't really know if certain women like black men or love black men or not. Some may, but you don't know. Whereas in South Africa, it's almost for certain that almost every South African woman love a black man or will date a black man. You might not be her type, but she won't put that off on you because you're black. Now, I do know like countries like Philippines. There's not a lot of black people there. I do know that there may be some Nigerians that might be there here and there. But how do Filipino women how do they interact with black men, specifically African American men, in that country when you're there?
You brought up a great point, and I was going to end up saying it, but a lot of brothers don't travel to the Philippines. Right? It's a long trip, man. It's a long trip. And I think that might deter a lot of brothers from coming here, as opposed to going to places like, the DR and Colombia, which I believe are definitely a closer flight and probably even cheaper. But because a lot of us don't travel there, it's really like opening up the landscape, because now we're unique. If you would do the numbers, and I wish I knew the numbers off the top of my head, but if you looked at the number of foreigners, more specifically Americans traveling to the Philippines, we're the second most traveled country to the Philippines. The first would be South Korea. But if you had to actually do the numbers, I can tell you the numbers of brothers that are actually going, slim to none. But don't think that they're not hip to our culture. Don't think that they don't know about hip hop music, and that they're not hip to, singers like Brian McKnight, who actually, I believe his wife is Filipina. So they have, they kind of have a vibe or in touch with the African American culture, or things that are, perceived to be African American culture in nature. So they like the fact that, they can interact with somebody like me, and how can I say this? They like the fact that they can interact with somebody like me because they're not used to interacting with somebody like me. So because we are unique when we travel to the country, it opens up the landscape tenfold. And it breeds less competition, if that's how you want to see it. Because if you think about the number of brothers who actually go there, it's like I said, it's slim to none. So actually, when we're in the country, we're the unique ones. So if they see us, they're more prone to being interested in what we have and what we're about, talking to us, getting to know us. Kind of makes talking to them a little bit easier because of how they feel about Black Americans. And, oh, I've heard this or I've heard that. And they have those types of conversations amongst themselves. But the fact that you can actually physically be there to, have that conversation with them, they can all, see a lot of things for themselves. So it does open up the landscape for a lot of brothers if they haven't been to the country yet. Like it's something else. It's definitely something else.
Okay, before we kind of get into, deeper into the topic, what about for the people, because you hear detractors, and it's not just Black women. Like a lot of times I'm starting to find out that the hatred that comes towards the travel community is not really from jealous Black women. Some of them, it can be the case. A lot of the hatred that comes from Black men traveling, actually other Black men, I'm finding that out. A lot of other Black men are just saying some things, but what you kind of hear with both people is like, you're only out there dealing with those ladies because they're poor. If she had another opportunity, she wouldn't be dealing with you. She only wants to deal with you for your money. I know you've been hearing that for quite some time. I mean, we've actually made content on it. What is your response to people who say that, hey, these guys, are only there because, they want that the women want their money and that's the only reason why they're dating you? What would you say to
that? Big bro, that's a great question. I can't speak for everybody who's traveled to the Philippines, and I can't speak for anybody who chooses to travel abroad. But yeah, you're gonna meet women when you travel, okay? And I believe that brothers are just tired, man. I mean, y'all don't understand. Not everybody is willing to just keep putting up with the nonsense if they don't have to. If a man can put together his means and put together the money that he's had or things that he's earning, he can actually live a decent life abroad. He's going to want to take the opportunity to live abroad. Sometimes it's just to get outside of the United States first. You can't help that you become a product of your environment as a result of. So I'll use myself as an example. However you slice it, I moved to the Philippines for school. I had a chance and an opportunity to study abroad. That's what I did. Because I had the opportunity to study abroad, being a product of my environment, aka dealing with the women that were around me, Filipinas were what were around me, Filipinas were who I dated. All right. And I kind of feel like the same rules can apply to people in the United States. If you've never left your backyard, your neighborhood, you're only going to deal with the women within your neighborhood. But when you realize that there's options to date in other places, in other countries, and it opens up and it broadens your horizons on the different types of women you can deal with, then you now have the opportunity to make the decision on whether you want to date this woman in this particular country or you want to date the woman where you're from. Again, femininity is definitely a topic of conversation that comes up. So it has really nothing to do with the fact that, oh, we want to deal with poor women, but it's the fact that these women, they're humble, they're sincere for the most part. Again, I can't speak for all of them, so I hate to generalize, but for the most part, if I had to compare them to the women that I'm used to dealing with in the United States, or that a lot of brothers are used to dealing with in the United States, femininity, willingness to submit. You know what I'm saying? And that kind of goes hand in hand because you kind of deal with a lot of women in the United States that aren't willing to let the man lead. That's never really been an issue for me. And a lot of guys, if you're looking for a woman to take care of you, you good where you at and they willing to do that. Hey, it's up to you. But for us, it's kind of like, I'm just tired of fighting, man. Sometimes you just get tired of just having that back and forth. And I kind of feel like it's not going to happen in all relationships, but you kind of get this thing where there's a push and pull for power, or in the relationship with a woman that you're dating, it could be that there's just always going to be a back and forth. That back and forth doesn't necessarily happen when you deal with women who come from cultures where they're used to seeing the man lead, where they're used to seeing, the man be in charge of, regardless of how you slice it. So for the guys who have that naysayer comment, to keep it real with you, I don't know why y'all worried about us brothers who choose to travel. I kind of feel like it leads to less competition in the United States. So y'all can have all them women here. So for the brothers who choose to actually, right. So for us that choose to travel, hey man, just let us do us. Cause I promise you, when I'm getting it in and I'm doing my thing, I can promise you, I ain't thinking about y'all. So I don't think they should be worried. Look, I don't think they should be worried about us, man. And yo, them naysayer comments, they hit me different, and I hear them too. Like I said, the low key comments. You even did a video about it. I think I remember who you was talking about. And you were talking about how a brother was making the comparison between dealing with, like, let's say for example, a Latin American woman living in the United States versus a Latin American woman living in Latin America. You know, and the difference between it was a video a couple months back.
Yeah.
And when I was watching it, I appreciated the way you came with it, because you said specifically you can't really compare the woman living in the United States versus the woman living in the country, because the way they act, the way they're brought up, the culture and everything is going to be completely different. Doesn't matter if they share the same nationality or not. So, you know, I appreciate your approach to that one, and I kind of feel the same about it. And like I tell them, man, y'all can have that energy, bro. I'm not fighting you for no women in the United States, bro. You keep them. I'm gonna take my ass to the Philippines. I'm gonna enjoy my best life, and I hope that y'all enjoy yours, man. Because I'm not worried about y'all. The much y'all think about what we.
I know that's
trust me, bro. What I do overseas ain't got nothing to do with nobody but me, myself, and nothing. So that's the best way for me to say it. Like I'm not pressed by what they say. So they can keep that energy, but I'm good. You keep that.
Right. So let me say this. So okay, because so let's get into it. Like, top 3 reasons, right? Because a lot of brothers, you know, don't know how they'll be received in you know, in the Philippines. But you made a video that was pretty interesting. It was controversial, I would say, but it was on YouTube Shorts. But what's the first reason that Filipino women are interested in African American men? Can you hear me?
You want me to tell you what the 3 things were?
Yeah, well,
go ahead. I'm sorry, I missed that last
What's
part.
The first reason?
The first one, it was confidence and masculinity, man, all day long. I'm gonna tell you, man, there's something this is gonna hit some people the wrong way, but ideally, man, black men represent confidence and masculinity in the Philippines. They're men, their own men, with all due respect. You know, they don't mind, you know, dressing up like females from time to time and doing some real flexible stuff. And again, I'm not saying it to be rude. I'm just saying it from what I've, you know, experienced from, you know, through my own eyes. You know, so, and even with other foreigners, man, they kind of do some really interesting things over there as well. But I've kind of learned that black men exude confidence and masculinity in the eyes of most Filipinos. So that was definitely number 1.
Okay.
You want me to do number 2, bro?
So let me ask you. So when you say that black men display confidence and masculinity, can you give me an example? In what ways would you say that African American men are exuding this confidence and masculinity? Why is that perception real for them?
The way that we carry ourselves in the country, you're not going to find with any other race. Again, I'm understanding that a lot of other men travel to the country, but it kind of feels as though it kind of may have started out as somewhat of an intimidation factor, like the way, you know, black men, you know, we walk with our chest held high. It's kind of like a vibe. I can't really explain it, but I kind of feel like what the confidence and masculinity and how they view it, you know, they always look at, you know, your black and African American athletes and your singers and your dancers and stuff like that. So that was where when you look at what most women consider to be masculine, sometimes they don't necessarily find it in their own men. And although I find it a little bit difficult to describe the masculinity because it comes through in the way we carry ourselves overall, you know, it's always something that I've learned Filipinos love about us as black men. And I'm trying to find the words for it, big bro, but it's escaping me right now. I ain't even gonna lie to you. But it's the way that black men carry themselves that I believe definitely plays a major role in how these women view us and the way we carry our confidence and our masculinity.
Okay. So basically, that's what we're looking at. Okay, it's confidence. Okay.
Yes,
so then let me go to the number 2. What's the number 2 reason?
I wrote there the ability to entertain. Right.
Okay.
When it comes to the ability to entertain, you know, I kind of feel like a lot of brothers who choose to travel to the Philippines, they're not carrying this animosity vibe, this hate, like the mentality that they have within the United States. They kind of want to bring it there, but once they realize that they can let their guard down and you can be yourself, you can have fun with them. And Filipinos love to have fun. They love to laugh. They love to smile. And I mentioned earlier, and I made this video, like my first 5 videos on my channel, the reasons why they like black men, because we can sing, dance, and play basketball. It was a joke, but it kind of breeds some type of truth, because these are the things that they recognize amongst most African American men that we do as part of, an occupation. But we can go out there, we can have fun. We don't mind dancing on the dance floor, cutting it up. And, we don't mind going out there, going to karaoke and singing and things like that, just to have a good time. And Filipinos are all about having a good time. And I kind of feel like black men overall exude that type of, like I said, the confidence and the ability to go out there and just be themselves for the most part. I believe that really does attract a lot of Filipinos to, us as black men.
Now, let me say this. You said a lot of times, now you made a really interesting point. You said that some black men may have a negative experience and kind of have a negative attitude in America. Then when they come to the Philippines, they want to have that, and they kind of change because they can feel like they can be themselves and have a good time, and they don't have to have that negative energy somewhere. What is it about being in the Philippines that make black men leave that situation, that kind of discontent or bad attitude, or not attitude, but kind of like a negative feeling towards situations at home in the States, and in the Philippines, they kind of have a rebirth? What is it about Philippines that allows you to do that?
You're not amongst your own. I kind of feel like when you grow up in a certain neighborhood, in a certain atmosphere, and you take yourself out of it, it's different, it's foreign, it's strange. But for the most part, you kind of feel like you have to hold a certain mentality, because this is what you've had to hold on to for such a long time. But when you're in a country wherein you're amongst people who are unfamiliar, granted, you got to I'm not going to say keep your head on a swivel, but you got to, take precautions like you would anywhere else you travel. It's not as if it has to be as, how can I say this? It's not as if you have to really exert that type of energy all the time. The people around you, they're super friendly, man. I don't think a lot of people give credit where credit is due to Filipinos and their friendly nature. They'll talk to you, they'll come up to you, have conversations with you, want to know you, say thank you for being in our country, so they're very inviting. And I kind of feel like that inviting nature of the environment in which you're in kind of gives you that opportunity to bring your guard down. Again, it's not going to happen overnight. It may take a little bit of time, but the inviting nature of the people that you're going to immerse yourself in, or the culture that you're going to immerse yourself in, kind of puts you in a position where, you realize, damn, I don't have to be like I was when I was back home. I can kind of just, relax and chill a little bit. Let's not get into the landscape of what the United States is right now, and kind of the vibes and the energies that you get when you deal with, different people and stuff. But in the Philippines, I really feel you're not going to have the same experiences and stuff that you would probably have in the United States. Once you realize that, you kind of just let your guard down a little bit, and you can really come out of your shell and, be yourself. And I think that being in a different environment helps to encourage that type of behavior. Might take a minute, but eventually you'll get there.
No, that's definitely true, because I'm in Poland, and even if I'm in Uganda, like if I'm in Sacramento, I'm like, oh shit, it might go down any moment. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yes, sir.
When I'm here, I can get out and walk outside at like midnight, and there won't nothing happen to you, right? Like, you just know that you're safe.
Exactly.
Like if I'm living in my neighborhood in Sacramento, I'm not walking outside at 12 o'clock. I mean, I would, but you might get bit by a pit bull. Anything could go down. Like it could just at any time. You know what I'm saying? And I don't feel like I have that pressure. Like when I'm like, at Art and Fair Mall or something like that, I'm like, okay, well, anything might go down, so I might, hurry up, come in and leave, be up out of here. You know what I mean? So no, I actually feel what you're saying. So the third one was funny, right? It's very stereotypical, but they're gonna get you for this. But so what's the third reason? But some black men gonna be like, yeah, that's true, brother, that's true. But what's the third reason that like Filipino women are really into African American men?
The third reason that I wrote for why Filipinos and Asian women were interested in being with black men was, of course, the BBC. Now, when I said this, again, guys, I was having fun, but I have to admit there is some truth behind it. You would be surprised at how Shit. Big bro, let's go ahead and be honest, man. They watch porn too, man. So they kind of see that shit. And when they watch it, they be like, is it true? And you'll have
Okay.
girls, depending on the level of comfortability with you and that particular young lady, they'll ask you, like, yo, is it really like that? Is it really this big? And I believe that that initial curiosity and intrigue, I can tell you right now, big bro, that's got me laid more times than I can imagine. And y'all think I'm playing? Like it's just that natural intrigue. Like they just want to see if it's true. They
Okay.
do. Like and once they get them a little taste, man, I promise you, man, you do it right. Yes, sir. It just happens to work itself out that way. And like I
Okay.
said, I think it just comes from the natural curiosity of women in general, but more so Asian
Okay.
women who may be used to dealing with men of a certain size. So when you hear about the black man and you've heard about the black man, the myth or whatever it may be, they all want to know if it's true. Now somebody might say, Doc, you capping, you lying. Until you get there and you experience it yourself, I'm gonna just have to just keep that upon just my own personal experiences, man. But for sure, I just believe it's just a natural curiosity that kind of guides them towards let me see if it's really true what they say. And then
Hmm.
once they kind of realize it kind of just plays itself out after that. At least it has for
Okay.
me. Again, like I said, it works for
Right.
me.
Everybody is different. But
Yes, sir.
you went to school there. You've
hmm
been going to Philippines for how many years?
Let's see. I was 10 years straight from 2006 to 2017, and then I go for about 3 months in 2018, and then 3 months again in 2019. Of course, pandemic didn't get a chance to travel in 2020, so haven't been back since. But at least
So 15
10 years
years.
straight. Yes, sir. On and off, 15 years at least.
Okay. So it ain't like, and you was living in, I think, Davao, right? Davao was part of your time?
Yes, sir. It was an hour outside of the capital city of Manila by plane. So yeah, I lived in Davao.
Okay. So let me say this. So, all right. Because you're gonna hear
hmm
this thing. Okay, so black men, they can entertain, they good in the bedroom, and you said one other thing. What was the other thing?
It was confidence and masculinity.
Confidence and masculinity. All right, so those
hmm
are like stereotypical Negro traits that don't really lead in it. Because I'm just gonna be up here that was advocate, right? It
hmm
don't really lead to anything. It's not really it's typical black man stuff. Like for guys who don't build anything, don't do because you gonna hear somebody say something like that, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
what makes her different? Like so the next guy that has all those things, then what makes you different from the next person if that was to happen? So have you ever heard? What if somebody would hit you with that? Like, okay, these are very superficial reasons that a woman
hmm
might like you. Now I do believe that could be true because I'm in Poland and I definitely have seen women go for guys for that reason, especially a lot of the African Nigerian guys that so it does help. But
hmm
what about what about for guys who are out there that might be like, well, I'm not really a person that's an entertaining kind of person. I'm a kind of
hmm
quiet guy. I don't know what the bedroom stuff, but I'm a kind of a technical
Right.
person, things like that. What if you're that kind of guy?
hmm
So is the Philippines for a black man who's not like what you were describing still?
You know what, bro? Like I said, when I made that video, having a little fun. There is some confident truth behind it, but I always tell everybody in every video that if they ever ask me, I say there's a Filipina out there for everybody. You don't necessarily have to be the outspoken, the showy person. I am not that person myself. I kind of came out of my shell when I started YouTube and I had to talk to people. So I kind of developed this over time, but for the most part, I keep to myself. I'm low key. But there is a Filipino out there for every black man. I can tell you right now. You can find somebody that you can have conversations with. They don't always just look for the guy that's the most outspoken and outshone. Because I mean, what do they say? The nail that sticks out gets hammered. So I'm not encouraging you guys to come out here and show out either, because that could lead to issues. But you don't necessarily have to be that type of person, out there, exposing yourself in a way like that. You can definitely be low key. You can just have conversations because you're gonna get looks. I think a lot of guys don't understand this. You're gonna get looks regardless, right? You're different to them. You're unique to them. So the looks are gonna come regardless. How you choose to follow up after you get that's completely up to you. But I promise you, you're gonna get looks, and you're gonna probably find somebody who fits your bill. Not every Filipina out there is, out there looking to be seen. Sometimes you have the shy types, the ones that, might fit more of your vibe than a woman that's out there, showing herself out shit. So when I say there's a Filipino out there for every man, I believe that wholeheartedly. Because again, they come with different, they got their own energies, they got their own personalities, no different than women in the States and stuff, or, women in Poland. So you're going to find somebody for you. If you give it time and you're willing to really put in the work for that, if you really want it that way, you're going to find somebody for you. Granted, if you're not looking for a relationship, like I said, that kind of might fit more for the gentleman, in the previous three things that I gave you, like you said. That might fit more for the guys that are just looking to, have a little bit of fun and stuff, and that might help y'all out more than anybody else. But if you're looking for somebody solid, I promise you, you'll find somebody here for you. I agree with, I believe that 100%. Yeah, you can find somebody.
So let me just ask you this also, because I know you made a video about what's your number, like if you want to retire and live in the Philippines. I thought it was a really great video. I was watching that. And for some guys who might want to like live overseas full time, and let's say if you're in the Davao city, like where you were at, about how much money do you think that a brother would need to have if he wanted to live in the Philippines? What kind of things would he need to finances per month would you think would be pretty good, and how much stuff like that costs?
All right. So when I originally made that video, the actual definitive number that I gave was $500,000. Now, yes, that's a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, a lot of guys might be like, that's not really a lot. I can clear that in like 2 or 3 years. But my philosophy behind it was, personally, just me only, I would keep $100,000 in cash, and then the other 400 would be wrapped up in investments that would push me out, hopefully in and around 2 to 3 thousand, 5,000 to $5,000 a month. That was always my number, anywhere between 2 and 5K. Now, a lot of people would be like, Doc, if you make it that money, you can live good anywhere in the world. Why would you choose the Philippines? Because I can make that money stretch a whole lot longer in places like the Philippines than probably, places like Europe and, even living in the United States. So I gave that number specifically because I know that if I can get get my money invested in the right things, again, investing is risk, hits and misses. But if you get into the right dividend paying stocks, just as a hypothetical, and that can run you or get you out your 2 or 3K, you can live off of that, have that 100K as an emergency stash and live your best life. Now, for as far as expenses and things you can expect to spend for in a place like Davao or even in Manila, you got to have a place to stay. You got to think about whether you want to rent or whether you want to own, or have your own place. Again, foreigners can't own property, so you'd have to have that tied up maybe in a business if you could get one started. That's another story for another day. Or you would have to have a significant other that would have that particular house in their name. A lot of guys aren't willing to do that. You can also own a condominium unit, be a little bit more expensive, but overall it'll be in your name, so you wouldn't have to worry about it. Or like most people, you can opt to rent. Rental would probably run you in and around $500 a month, give or take. And that's in a pretty good location dealing with things. You can find them extremely cheap. Does depend on your lifestyle and how you want to live out there. But about 500 is a good average for about what you can expect to spend on rent. Again, you can move around and be flexible with your moving when you can do that. Not the same when you have a property out there, because if you have a property, you're going to need somebody to watch it if you choose to leave. Because trust me, depending on your area, you could have some issues. Right? People might try you. It's just what it is. But renting, as far as your monthly expenses, groceries and stuff like that, may spend about a couple hundred, depending on how many mouths you feed. If it's just your own, whether you got a young lady, you might spend $100 doing groceries and stuff like that. Leisure activity and entertainment, completely up to you. My budget for that will be a little bit lower because, I go out every now and again. I might spend a little bit every now and again, but it's not an everyday occurrence. So my number in that particular realm might be a little bit lower than somebody else's. But I can honestly say that depending on how you spend, for myself, I know that I could get away with like $1,500 a month. I can make $1,500 a month work for me. But I often overshoot, like I said, for about 2 or 3K. That way, that extra 1,500 is just there just in case I need it. Not to mention, I got that extra 100,000 on the side to, cover me for like large purchases or any type of emergency. So that's how my mind thinks, because I know my number in the Philippines. I know what's comfortable for me. If I have X amount coming in every month, I know I can make it work. you know. So that's kind of
Okay.
been how I generated my thought around how much money would actually benefit. But like my people tell me, once you start making money, like real money, you know, and it really starts to, you know, trickle in, you know, that number might increase because, when you start getting it and you start making it, you don't want to stop getting it, you know, and with retirement or, you know, pulling yourself out of a country like the United States, if that's where you're earning your general base income and not online, you know, you might not want to take yourself away from that, you know, until you're really ready to cash out. So,
what like for a real quick question, as far as like a Davao City, or what like, I know Manila, but what are some of the kind of ranges for like a nice place, in those areas? Manila, just kind of quick range that you saw in or Davao.
okay. So near a mall, like there's a nice mall in Davao City called a Breeza Mall. Like
Hmm.
a condo unit just on the outside of the mall might run you about 600 US dollars, 700 top end, and that's not bad. And if you're talking about a studio, could run you a little bit cheaper. You know, your one bedroom, your two bedrooms when you're renting, of course, they're going to go up in price. So anywhere between like 6 and 8. But these are really nice usually furnished condominium units and stuff like that. So yeah, you can expect to spend, I would say, and I know this is a lot, and a lot of people would be like, I can live in the United States on that one, but for all inclusive stuff, man, 1,000 at the top end, that should be no more than what you would spend. If you're spending more than that, I kind of feel like you're doing yourself a disservice because you can really find them at a good range between like 500 and 700 for a nice place, depending on the area. Like I said, that's living near a mall, but you can find pretty decent units that are not near places that'll come out a little bit cheaper. You might have to travel to some, locations and stuff like that, but it's definitely worth it. If you get a nice place, it might run you about 300 or so, just like
Hmm.
not near a mall and things like that.
Okay. All right. So let me just do this for guys. This is Dr. Mike TV. I'm glad, it's a long time since we did a show. But I've been
Yes,
watching
sir.
his channel. He didn't know I was the one. I was still watching. But Dr. Mike, go ahead and tell the people, man, what's the reason why they should subscribe to the Dr. Mike YouTube channel?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, big bro, I always appreciate you coming through and showing love to me, man. I appreciate you giving me your platform to, speak a little bit about my time spent in the Philippines. But guys, if you want to subscribe to the Dr. Mike TV channel, I tell you right now, man, we're just over there to educate, entertain about all things Philippines. I can tell you guys about studying abroad over there if you wanted to learn about that. We want to learn a little bit more about how the women are in the country. That's usually some of the reasons why a lot of my brothers come talk to me. But we're just there to have some fun, man, entertain, and I can share with you guys some experiences, some things that you can prepare for, tips, just in case you're already planning a trip to the country. And we could just have genuine conversations about time spent abroad and what it's like to really date women from other countries. That way, if that's something you might be interested in, maybe I can help you out, give you guys some ideas of whether you may or may not be interested in coming to the country. So check me out over there on the Dr. Mike TV channel, man. Y'all take care. Y'all stay blessed.
All right, guys. And as you know, the buffoonery remains at an all-time high. I'm out.